Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1128 for September 28th, 2025. Coming up in a few minutes.
I have to admit, they pretty much had me from luxury book because I don't know of any author that wouldn't really kind of like to be in a nice looking book with really nice illustrations. I know I did.
Lew Bryson's latest book is American Whiskey Masterclass, a sequel to his Whiskey Masterclass book from 2020. He takes a deep dive into American whiskeys from the classic Bourbons and Ryes to the upstart American Single Malts. And we'll take a deep dive into the state of American whiskey with Lew on this week's WhiskyCast in depth. That's just ahead. In the What I'm Tasting This Week department, I'll share my tasting notes for Lost Lantern's new Parflung 3 blend of bourbons from 6 different distilleries and the new Dierks Bentley Row 94 Broken Branches bourbon. We'll also have Behind the Label and much more. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast. Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory, this is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Hey, it's Gabriel from Dewar's Whiskey. Here's a quick tip. Whenever you're pouring great whiskey, especially something like Dewar's 12-year, don't overthink it. All you need is a few glasses and a couple of people worth sharing it with. The rest takes care of itself. Back in a bit.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. We'll begin with news of a whiskey heist in Washington State. Someone faked shipping documents and pulled up to the dock at Seattle's Westland Distillery back on July 31st with an empty truck. They left with $925,000 worth of whiskey, 12,000 bottles in all, including a Westland American Single Malt, the soon-to-be-released Watchpost Single Malt, and 3,000 bottles of this year's limited edition 10th Anniversary Garryana release. The whiskey never turned up in New Jersey where it was supposed to be. Skagit Valley Sheriff's detectives are investigating the theft. Westland Managing Director Jason Moore turned down our request for an interview, but told the Associated Press that this year's Garryana bottles are irreplaceable. Elsewhere, Diageo's cost-cutting program continues. Production has been halted at Balcones Distilling in Waco, Texas, and the Cascade Hollow Distillery in Tennessee that makes George Dickel. The company says both distilleries had already met their production targets for the fiscal year. 17 jobs were eliminated at Balcones, while no one was laid off at Cascade Hollow. Both distilleries remain open for tours and tastings. Diageo also halted production at Scotland's Teaninnick Distillery for the same reason. New data from the federal government shows whiskey production has dropped 28% this year. The Treasury Department's report covers the first 3 months of this year and shows whiskey distilling is at its lowest level since 2019, with whiskeys destined for export down 70% and inventories climbing. The industry currently has 1.5 billion gallons of whiskey maturing around the country. That's 3 times the level of a decade ago when bourbon was booming. In other news, Black Button Distilling has been saved from bankruptcy with an investment from the new Black Star Company. It's a partnership between former Buffalo Trace executive Chris Comstock and Ray Franklin. Their investment will allow Black Button to continue operations. The tasting room in Rochester, New York will remain closed for now while the new owners assess the business. All 9 full-time employees will keep their jobs, including founder and master distiller Jason Barrett. Now might not be the best time to launch a new Indian single malt in the U.S. with tariff levels at 50% on Indian imports. But Piccadilly Agro is moving ahead with its launch of Indri Agnia single malt. Piccadilly's Director of International Sales, Madhu Khanna, says U.S. consumers can expect higher prices as a result of the tariffs.
For example, my Indri Trini was retailed in the U.S. at $55 prior to any of the tariffs started hitting in. With the 10% and the 25% additional tariff, the prices have already gone up to $65. Should the 50%, the container is not coming for a 50%, the prices will go up to $75. Unless, so $55 single malt is going to go up to $70 or $75 because of the tariffs. Unless either we or the importer cuts our margin and try to absorb it. But then we as manufacturers have very little room for margins. And the importer, even if they try to accommodate 5 to 10%, we take about another 5% hit, still there's going to be a price increase in the market. And as we are talking, our Commerce Minister and the Minister of External Affairs both are in the US. They're trying hard to negotiate with the US government to see how the tariffs can be brought down. Not a right time to launch a single malt whiskey from India, but we had kind of planned these shipments much before the tariff talks were on. So these have landed at our importer's warehouse earlier, late in August. And we decided that we're not going to turn back, and we're just going to go ahead with our plans. Keep making good whiskies, keep it as price competitive as we can. And we believe that there will always be people who would like good whiskies. And we're not charging a bomb for our whiskies. So Agnya is going to be retailed at about $75 with 25% tariff. With 50% tariff, it may go up to $85. But I think still it's approachable and reasonable for the kind of quality it offers.
Indri Agnya is Piccadilly's first peated whiskey. I had the chance to taste it the other day, and I'll have my tasting notes for it in a few minutes. Other new whiskeys making the rounds this week. Country music star Dierks Bentley unveiled his newest Row 94 bourbon this week. Row 94 Full Proof is a sequel to his recent release of Broken Branches in conjunction with his latest album. Both whiskeys are produced at Green River Distilling in Owensboro, Kentucky. It's bottled at 60% ABV, and Full Proof carries a recommended retail price of $54.99 a bottle. The Welsh Whiskey Company is marking its 25th anniversary this year with a new peated Penderyn that's making its debut this weekend at Whisky Live Paris. Serpent's Tears is the first whiskey from the company's Llandudno distillery, which opened in 2021, and it's said to be the first peated whiskey created in Wales in more than a century. Frey Ranch launched its second release in its Harvester series this weekend at the distillery in Fallon, Nevada. It's a blend of Frey Ranch whiskeys created by blending consultant Nancy Fraley, and only 600 bottles are available through an online lottery and at the distillery's tasting room. The price tag is $249.99 a bottle. I received a sample, and I'll have my tasting notes for it in a few minutes. And finally, Booker's Bourbon is out with its third release of the year. This one honors Jerry Dalton, the only Beam Master distiller who was not a Beam family member. He held down the fort after Booker No retired until Fred No was ready for the job and was inducted into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame last year. Jerry's batch is 7 years, 4 months, and 21 days old, and it's bottled at 62.35% ABV. It carries a recommended retail price of $99.99 a bottle. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's open up the calendar now and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. Tickets have gone on sale for the Whiskey Social in Toronto November 1st. It's an informal afternoon event being organized by the folks who put together the Spirit of Toronto Festival each May. Between now and then, we have the Whiskey Show this coming weekend in London. The Indie Spirits Expo is in Chicago on October 7th. The Distillers One of One auction is on the 10th at Hopetoun House near Edinburgh, Scotland. And that same night, the Whiskey Lounge hosts the first of 2 rare finds tastings that weekend. The first one is in York, England. The second is on the 11th at Blackfriars in Newcastle, England. The Brandy Library in New York City has a great bourbons tasting on the 11th, and the American Whiskey Show is coming up on the 18th in Melbourne, Australia. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app.
Throughout the years, Dewar's has created some incredible whiskeys, but our new Dewar's 12-year-old, that one's a personal favorite. It's the kind of scotch that earns praise from the pros, but still feels right at home in the middle of a good night with friends. Every pour opens up with notes of vanilla, toffee, baking spice, and a smooth oak finish. It's rich, it's approachable, and it has a way of bringing people together, whether it's around the table, the fireplace, or just wherever the night happens to take you. Look, the glasses may hold the whiskey, but the whiskey, that's what holds the moment. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
WhiskyCast In Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey. Lew Bryson is the former editor of Whiskey Advocate magazine and has been writing about whiskey and beer for more than 2 decades. His latest book is American Whiskey Masterclass, and it's available through all major booksellers. We talked about his new book and the state of American whiskey on a Zoom call this week. So what prompted you to sit down and write an update to a Whiskey Masterclass?
Well, the usual money. They asked me to. The publisher actually has this other line of luxury publications that were, as I understand it, mostly automotive at that point, and they wanted to expand that. And they said, "Look, we've got this idea. You take your Whiskey Masterclass, the same publisher, take the Whiskey Masterclass book, tear out everything that is an American whiskey, and expand on that." And they said, "We think that would make good substance for one of these luxury books." And I have to admit, they pretty much had me from luxury book, because I don't know of any author that wouldn't really kind of like to be in a nice looking book with really nice illustrations. I know I did. So.
And after you tore out all the non-American stuff, how much was left?
About 40%. So I fine-tuned that. I was able to add a bunch of stuff that I had to cut, because I was working to a pretty strict word count on the first one, on Whiskey Masterclass. And so I had about the same word count, so I had to fill all the rest of that in. And, it was not hard. I ran up against word count again. There's so much to cover.
Yeah, American whiskey has really taken off in the last decade, and then it's also crashed too.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of watching that I was going to say slow motion, but it seems to be speeding up. I know I got into this in around 95, 96, just as we were tapering off the last decline, and things were not quite starting to pick up, but soon after. And now at the far end of the arc of my career, it's dropping off again. So everybody knows this business is cyclical. It's only people who've been in it long enough that actually get that in their gut.
What's your take on the state of the American whiskey industry today?
I like to tell a story about cigars when I think about this. I was talking to, this has been years now, Dave Savona, when he was at Cigar Aficionado. And there had been a cigar boom in the 90s. And I said, so the boom, it was a bubble and one bust. How many cigars were selling before it took off? And I'm remembering this off the top of my head from conversation years ago, but it was about 1.2 million units, as he put it, of cigars. And these are, not like a 5-pack of Dutch Masters. You're talking about fine cigars. At the height of the boom, it was about 4.4 million. And then after the bubble burst, it was 3.4 million. So Was that really a bubble? That's not a bubble. That's a boom, and that's a cycle. And the cycle stays higher at the end of it. I think that's where we're going to be. You know, we've got a lot of new whiskey drinkers. Have we hit the peak? Yes. I mean, I was hedging on that about 4 or 5 months ago, but I think we hit the peak and we're a little bit on the downslope. But I still see an awful lot of excited whiskey drinkers. I still see events happening. If we do, and we almost certainly will see a decline, it's not going to be 80%. I don't think this is going to be like the bourbon bust in the 70s.
And a lot of overproduction still too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been talking to some independent bottlers. They said, the spot price of a barrel of bourbon has crashed. That's way down. So if you bought a bunch of barrels of bourbon as an investment, better start drinking.
Yeah, I've always said that buying barrels is not a good investment.
No, that's just not a good idea.
What are you drinking there?
I actually have a lab sample. I was at Stolen Wolf Distillery in Linnets, Pennsylvania last night, and they were one of the earliest distilleries to start working with the Bourbons and Ryes.
Right.
This is a one-off. It's a Rosen rye made with Rosen malt. So they have the Rosen in as the main rye, and then they also have some malted Rosen as the enzyme carrier. It's delicious, and unfortunately, there was one barrel. They made one barrel of the stuff. So he was actually generous enough to give me quite a bit of it. But it's got this almost like honey graham cracker character to it. It's really nice. And it's at 107 proof, which is one of my favorite proofs.
One of the things I've noticed recently is this whole increase in hazmat whiskeys.
Oh, yes.
Whole fascination with them, and I don't understand it personally. But what's your take?
When I have been drinking something over 120 proof for long enough, my tongue starts squeaking on my teeth. I mean, that can't be good. My tongue just feels like a big old slab of rubber in there. I don't get it. I mean, they tell you, well, it's so that way you can dilute it to where you want it. Except you've seen these guys drink this stuff. How many of them are even adding water? They don't. It's a challenge thing. And besides of which, even if you are going to add water, the guys who are proofing the whiskey at the distillery know more about that than you. Arguably, they don't know more about your palate, but they know more about proofing than you. Proofing is still a really big mystery to most people. I tried to address that in the book, but I'm still learning, and it was weird. I first started learning about proofing about 4 years ago, like the whole weirdness of it. And I felt like I had just wandered into this big unlit room in a mansion that I'd been living in for years. And I'm like, where did this come from? Why did no one tell me about this room? And it's a weird thing, but it's cool. Add water and flavors appear, which is not what you think. Most whiskey drinkers think, well, you add water, you're doing that to dilute it. You're doing it to get more whiskey to put in the bottle for the same money because water's free. Okay, that could be. And if you have a mass selling whiskey at 86 proof and you knock it down to 80, money may have a lot to do with that. Money, supply, whatever. But when you're taking a higher end whiskey, a possibly more delicate whiskey, you got a proof with a very fine hand. Yeah.
One of the whiskeys I was most impressed with recently was Milam & Green's new Provisions.
Have not had it.
Heather Green proofed it at 80 proof.
Did she really? God bless her.
And it is a great sipping whiskey.
I love when I find a whiskey that tastes great at 80 proof. I cannot wait to sample people on it. Because, you hear so many people that just won't even try an 80 proof whiskey. You kind of have to slip it in on them. But, and I remember talking to Jim Rutledge about the Four Roses Yellow Label. Do we still call it that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I call it that.
Yeah, and we agreed. It was so good. It was really dangerous because at 80 proof, it just tastes great and doesn't slow you down at all. And you kind of have to watch yourself.
It's a good session dram.
Yeah. Yeah.
You taste anything else lately that you like?
Heaven Hill has been very generous recently, and I cannot find anything I don't like.
Yeah.
They're really, really nailing it lately. What else did I have? Well, actually have been tasting a bunch of older stuff because we moved all of my whiskey out of the house to remodel, and we just moved all of it in about a month ago, and I'm still going through boxes, figuring out where things are going to go. Came across one of the Canadian Club older version. It was a 41-year-old.
Yeah,
it's just marvelous. Such a great whiskey. What else? Oh my God. My wife has a very small number of bottles of whiskey that are hers, and I have to ask her if I may have some. Found one of those, an old bottling of Ardbeg 17 that, wow, just really has held up magnificently.
And she let you have some?
She let me have some, because it was a special occasion because she didn't know where it was, and I found it, and she's like, we may have a little. Okay, yes.
It's a nice prize.
Yeah. So, gosh, what else? Because I've been drinking more craft whiskey than usual. Because it's just I had my head buried in this for so long, and I was really focused on only drinking whiskeys that illustrated stuff in the book. So I would write a section and go looking for a whiskey to match with that. One of the sections I wrote was because just actually after I turned the manuscript in, they finally passed that American Single Malt definition and added that to the standards. And I'm like, we got to rewrite. And my editor agreed we got to rewrite. So we went at that, and made me think a lot about American Single Malt and how I felt about it when it first started coming out, which was not great. I didn't feel really good about it. Didn't have a lot and the one I keep going back to is the Cedar Ridge, the quintessential. Yeah, an American Single Malt that I will actually reach for and say, I want some of that now. So, and I'm finally going to get to visit the distillery in 2 weeks. I'm really excited. I haven't never been out, but I've got an opportunity. I'm doing a Midwest tour. So I'm like, it's not that far away from Chicago. And so I'm just going to go. Looking forward to it.
Great. Tell them I said hello.
I will do that. I will. All right.
Because I've not been out there myself either, but I've not had a bad whiskey from those guys yet.
No. I mean, they certainly know their way around corn, and, the Single Malt was a nice surprise. They've been doing some nice finishes, too.
What's your take on the growth of American Single Malt since the regulation was passed, since you spent all this time rewriting that section?
The westward thing kind of has me concerned that maybe we put too much excitement into it. There's a lot of education needed. And I'm not sure that the guys who are doing it have the money or the resources or even the time to go out and do that. So, it's going to fall on our broad shoulders again. But I think that's what it's got to be, because too many people think it should be cheap Scotch, which it's never going to be cheap. And it's not Scotch for a variety of reasons. And I mean, that was one of my big issues with it before, because I really thought American Single Malt just seemed misleading to me. Like you were deliberately trying to ride on the coattails when, you call it single malt because, wow, this one we didn't blend. there is no real tradition of blending in American craft distilleries, blending from different distilleries. So I thought single malt was maybe unnecessary, and they were just, but now that I've been tasting some that are good, I've become a lot more broad-minded, and I think I'm thinking of the single malt as more of a nod, an homage to the category. But the American part, I hope, makes it clear that it is different. I mean, it's like saying Japanese whiskey is really just Scotch. That's not true either.
No.
So yeah, but like I said, I that education needs to be done, and I'm not sure they have the power to do it. Even the ones that are backed by bigger distillers, I haven't seen a lot of effort to try and explain it. I mean, Westland, some, and that's great.
Yeah.
But
I don't. Not putting much behind Claremont Steep.
No, I mean anything other than a label. Yeah, I mean it's going to have to. It almost makes me. There was I'm a beer writer as well and a beer drinker. The Great American Beer Festival is always held in Denver, and people complained about it for years. Why does it always have to be in Denver? So they did an experiment one year and had a what they called the Great American Beer Festival on the road in Baltimore, and it got about $1,000 worth of promotion. It was on the same weekend as the Preakness, a major air show, and another large beer festival in Richmond. Uh-huh. And they were like, "Hey, you know what? It didn't work. We're not going to do that again." I'm like, "You were making it fail. Are you kidding?" And I just have this sneaking suspicion that American Single Malt might be being set up to fail, like it's being deliberately under. I don't know, man. There's too much conspiracy theory around in the air right now. Maybe that's all it is. But wow, I mean, this is not the way to build a category.
It's the next light whiskey.
Yeah, right. Here's a wonderful idea. Never mind. That's kind of funny because I mean, light whiskey is actually making kind of a comeback. I mean, there's some really good super aged light whiskeys out there, which is. I don't know. It's just strange.
Yeah, MGP was the only one laying down light whiskey for all those years.
Yeah, it's almost like they were doing it because they were putting it in Seagram's. Is that what they were doing with it? Yeah. And now, wow, Seagram's sales went down too. And that's, I didn't think that would ever happen.
As we're recording this, we just got the word about Balcones shutting down production along with George Dickel.
Yeah, which I did not. I mean, you told me, so that's.
Yeah, it's a temporary pause until next June, but still, that's cause for worry.
Well, I've been thinking about it since you mentioned it. This is not the first time they've shut down production on Dickel.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that was almost. Dickel's making whiskey again. Wonder for how long. But yeah. Almost every craft distiller I've talked to in the last 6 months has either stopped production or cut back. So, there were more barrels coming in than there were going out. So that's not a side of the equation you want to be on.
No. And
I don't know if that's are drinkers hunkering down and going to what they know and not experimenting as much? Are people smoking weed? Are people drinking canned cocktails? Is whiskey no longer trendy and the trendy people have all run off?
All of the above?
All the above, right. I mean, I know there are still people excited, but, like my cigar story, there always will be. There's just not as many. And unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of distillers have invested in equipment and space and employment to fit the most optimistic scenario. It's not a terrible mistake. It's the worst one you can make, but it's understandable.
Oh, there are worse ones you can make. Look at Uncle Ernst.
That was a pretty bad mistake.
They got, as the judge put in the receivership case, they got way out over their skis on that one.
Yes. Yeah, that was well put. Yeah. And unfortunately, have to be honest, they sent us some really nice artwork for the book, and I used it. So now I've got a 2-page spread of the Uncle Nearest tasting room in the middle of my new book, which is a little embarrassing, but
the whiskey is still out there.
Whiskey's still out there, and the story's still good.
Yeah.
The actual Uncle Nearest story. And I don't have any problem with pushing that along. That's still a good story.
No, I'm hoping that they find a way to recover out and don't go into bankruptcy.
No, I don't want to see it go away.
So let's talk about your podcast.
Sure.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's called Seen Through a Glass. And it's all about, it's where I live. It's central Pennsylvania, food and drink. Central Pennsylvania, roughly described as, pretty much anything that is in Philadelphia, Scranton, Erie, and Pittsburgh. It's all the rest of the stuff in the middle. But I can't help myself. I'm sure over half the episodes are either an interview with a brewer or interview with a distiller. I just interviewed Herman at Dad's Hat Tuesday night, and last night I interviewed Eric Wolf at Stolen Wolf. Have you ever interviewed Eric?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! I asked him one question, and 50 minutes later, I'm like, "Okay, I think we're done."
Yeah.
And it's all fascinating stuff, but man, it's like flipping a match into a box of fireworks. Pretty great.
And Herman's a good interview too.
Herman is a good interview. I was just looking today. I actually got some really good photos of him for a change. So that's a plus too. But yeah, Herman's very thoughtful. He's also pretty forthright. So it's a good combination. And
they both make some pretty good whiskey.
Indeed. This stuff is really good. Herman was pulling out some barrels for the event. I had the book launch there Tuesday, but he also rolled out one of the barrels of that small amount of apple brandy he made. That stuff's really good. It might be one of the best apple brandies I've had, and I was loving it because it wasn't just barrel. There was just that scritch of apple to it. And one of my old friends who had come to the tasting, she's like, "I'm not getting apple out of this." I'm like, "It's not apple juice. You don't taste grapes and brandy." Like, oh, well, okay, all right. But I thought he did a really good job with that.
We'll let you take another sip there.
Thank you. I had to wet. So what did I have there? We did have his Rosen as well at both of the tastings. Last night when I was at Stolen Wolf, we compared their regular rye and their Rosen rye side by side because my whole presentation was, heirloom grains. Do they really do anything? And, there was an obvious difference. But I'm sticking with, I think the ultimate, not solution, but I think where we ought to be driving is what Steve Jones is doing he's retired now, I guess, at the University of Washington. Cross those heirloom grains with modern strains to get high yield and big flavor.
Yeah.
So, if you can get all that together, and he's not a GMO guy. He's a traditional Mendelian, cross the strains and pull out the good ones. So I think that's where things should be heading, but you have to prove it first. And then, these guys who are doing Rosen and Danko and a Rustic and a Abruzzi, and that's, you gotta prove your proposition first and then go into the big thing. But there's a real reason for doing it. There's obvious differences, and everybody wants a difference. You got to have something to hang your hat on. This is why you should get my rye instead of somebody else's. And story will only go so far. You got to have something to back it up. But I think that's the I think that's the next step, getting it better for farmers to grow it.
Yeah, because unless the farmers grow it, you can't distill it.
No, you're dead in the water. And they'll only experiment for so long. If they're making money on it, they'll keep doing it. And then, like I said at the very beginning, that's why I do this stuff. I'm trying to make a living. So,
Lew Bryson is the author of American Whiskey Masterclass, and he has book signings coming up in the Chicago area at Delilah's on October 6th and at the Indie Spirits Expo on the 7th. We have a link to order his book in the show notes for this episode at whiskycast.com. And that's WhiskyCast in Depth, brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice, and signature smoothness. This is a whiskey at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
Let's start off the What I'm Tasting This Week department with Row 94 Broken Branches, the second Row 94 release from Dierks Bentley and Green River Distilling Company. It's bottled at 50% ABV, and the nose has touches of oak tannins, coffee beans, dark chocolate, and subtle spices. The taste is thick, chewy, and spicy with black pepper, cinnamon, oak tannins, and black cherries, while the finish is long and spicy with a hint of black cherries. I'm scoring the Row 94 Broken Branches Bourbon a 90. Now let's look at the Indri Agnia Indian Single Malt. It carries no age statement and is bottled at 46% ABV. The nose is malty with peat smoke, creme brulee, cocoa beans, dried fruits, and soft spices. The taste is peaty and peppery with notes of black pepper, dried fruits, and dark chocolate, and the finish is long and smoky. I'm scoring the Indri Agnia Single Malt a 92. Next up, the Lost Lantern Far-Flung Bourbon Edition 3. This one is a blend of 6 different distilleries from around the U.S., and it's bottled at cask strength, 62.4% ABV. The nose is oaky with touches of cherries, apples, and soft spices. The taste is dry, astringent, and peppery with honey, cherries, and oak tannins adding balance, while the finish is long, dry, and peppery. I'm scoring the Lost Lantern Far-Flung Bourbon Edition number 3 a 92. Now, one of those 6 distilleries was Frey Ranch in Nevada, which released the second harvest in its Harvester series this weekend. It's bottled at 61.22% ABV, and the nose is grainy with roasted sweet corn, dried apples, honey, and black cherries. The taste is creamy and thick with black pepper and allspice notes, balanced by apples, honey, and black cherries. The finish is long and peppery with a touch of honey. I'm scoring the Frey Ranch Harvester Series Second Harvest on 93. I'll be adding these whiskeys to our searchable list of nearly 3,900 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at whiskycast.com. Japanese whiskey began with Shinjiro Tori's vision to reflect the true nature and spirit of Japan. The House of Suntory was founded on these principles, guided by generations of craftsmanship that have transformed time, nature, and precision into something greater than the sum of its parts. Pure waters from the mountains of Hakushu, Mizunara oak shaped by decades of patience, a blending philosophy rooted in harmony. These aren't just techniques, they're a way of thinking, a quiet pursuit of balance and depth. From Yamazaki to Hakushu to Hibiki, every whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from and the hands that shape it. House of Suntory, the founding house of Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Let's open up the WhiskyCast community app now and see what people are talking about this week in our community segment. Last week I mentioned that Dublin Airport is now allowing passengers to carry up to 2 liters of liquids through its security checkpoints. Australian Chris Tadzenko just finished a trip to Dublin and posted this in the app. Yeah, we only found out flying out of Dublin on Friday morning last week. Now for the rest of the world to catch up, except Australia, as we do not care how much liquid you take on board for domestic flights. After I posted the news about the Westland heist in the app this week, Tyrone Coty responded, "That's a lot to try to sell in the black market." 12,000 bottles is a lot indeed. Juan Cruz had this comment on Diageo's shutting down Balcones and Cascade Hollow distilleries until next summer. I am fully aware of the costs here, but it would be interesting to hear the rationale for stopping production versus reducing or limiting production. This kind of decision causes many issues in the future, including future limited mature stock that will go up in price from supply and demand. The consumer will end up paying for it. Well, distillers set production quotas at the start of the year, and while those numbers are proprietary, Diageo said both distilleries met their quotas early this year, and producing more could lead to overstocks down the road. Finally, Lafroig premiered a new video with actor Willem Dafoe this week in what's going to be a long-term partnership. Rick had this comment, "I loved it, but I'm also someone who's older and a big fan of Willem Dafoe. Not sure if he helps them with the challenge of connecting to younger consumers who are moving away from whiskey." Sort of like the Harrison Ford-Glenmorangie partnership, huh? If there's something you'd like to share with whiskey lovers around the world, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store and join the conversation. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. This week we note the passing of Willet Distillery Executive Director Evan Kulsveen. The Norwegian native resurrected Willet with his wife Martha back in 1984 when they founded Kentucky Bourbon Distillers Limited. They eventually brought distilling back to Bardstown in 2012. He was inducted into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame in 2019 for his contributions to the bourbon industry, and he received the Parker Beam Lifetime Achievement Award that year. Martha Kulsveen died earlier this year. Evan is survived by his daughter, Willet Chief Whiskey Officer Britt Kulsveen, and his son, Willet Master Distiller Drew Kulsveen. Evan Kulsveen was 79 years old. If there's something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and of course a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store, or find us on social media. We're on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and our email address is comments@whiskycast.com.
There's something special about opening a bottle of Dewar's 12-year with the people who matter most. It brings out the stories, the laughter, and the kind of moments you don't plan, but never forget. Built on tradition, made for right now, and best when shared. Dewar's 12-year-old.
Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory. This is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2025, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.